Hey everyone, welcome to Rahari Tech Academy. If you've ever heard cloud and thought it sounded confusing or technical, today we're breaking it down in a way that actually makes sense. By the end of this session, you're going to understand how companies use the cloud, and this is literally the foundation of the certifications like AZ-900. What is cloud computing? Cloud computing is simply using someone else's computer over the internet instead of your own. Instead of buying servers, maintaining them, and fixing them, companies rent computing power. Think about it like this: Gmail, Netflix, Teams, they're all cloud. So it is access over the internet, computing services, storage servers, databases, and software delivered via the internet. Think about your Gmail account. That is a cloud-based account. You don't actually go anywhere to go get it. You just go on a computer. You can put things in Google Drive. You can have all these types of files. That is a cloud-based service. Or Netflix. Now you do not need a DVD. You can just log in and see whatever show you want. That is a cloud-based service. No physical servers needed, so you don't need to own or manage the hardware. So think about it. If you're old enough to remember when we had the tower PCs and the fatback computer monitors, you know that there was a time where you needed a physical device, but now we have services like Google Cloud, like Azure, and like AWS that allow us to have our own virtual server in the cloud. If you're old enough to remember floppy drives, then you'll remember when we had to store our documents on a floppy drive or a USB. So now think of the cloud as your floppy disk or USB drive in the sky. And of course, you can access the cloud from anywhere: your laptop, your phone, any mobile device that has access to the internet. And I'm pretty sure there's at least one or two of you today in this class that uses Google Drive, that uses iCloud for their photo backups, or Google Photos, or Outlook or OneDrive at work, or have seen it in the past. You've used Dropbox. You store files in your cell phone. Those are all cloud-based storage. So welcome to the cloud. You've probably already been here for a while. So this is pizza as a service, okay? Um, so it stands PaaS, that's platform as a service. It stands for platform as a service. So think of homemade. That is on premises, meaning it is physically there. You have to buy the ingredients, you have to cook it, and of course, you have to do the cleanup. And if you're like me, you don't want to do the cleanup. So you have to manage everything from beginning to end. You're making the sauce from scratch. You're picking out the ingredients. You're sitting there and you're waiting the 30 minutes for the dough to rise. You are the end all be all, right? So that's what that is going to be the on premises. That is the physical presence. So that's in your house, you doing it all. Then there's the takeout, or the infrastructure as a service. That means you go to the shop, they make the pizza, but you got to go pick it up. And if you don't have a car or a pizza shop down the road, that's inconvenient, right? So then we have delivery, platform as a service. So what does that mean? That means the pizza shop cooks it. That means Domino's is cooking your pizza and they bringing it to the house, preferably in an hour or less, because I'm hungry if I'm ordering pizza. Pizza Hut, what is the other ones? For you Marylanders, what is it? Lido's Pizza, right? They're going to cook it and deliver it, which means you have to do, only thing you got to do is eat it and clean up because it's your house. And then the last one is if you go to the restaurant. That means you go in, you order the food at the restaurant, you eat the food at the restaurant, and you eat at the restaurant. Literally everything else is handled by someone else, meaning you're just arriving. So that's what software as a service is. That means literally all you do is log into your portal or your website, and then you have full access to whatever your services is. So think of Gmail, right? You log into Gmail, you don't do anything else. You create an account, you log in, they handle everything else. They handle security, they handle data. You just pay them if you need an extra little bit of data because you're using Google Drive, and that's that. Okay? Cloud is the same way. The more you pay, the less you manage. So in this case, we are paying for convenience. And if you are someone who takes Ubers and all of that, you are paying for the convenience of not having to pay a car note and pay for gas. Same thing applies here. So who's cooking and who's just ordering food on Uber Eats? I'm ordering on Uber Eats, okay? So now CapEx versus OpEx. So companies used to, in order to start a company 15, 20, maybe even 30 years ago, probably as recently as 10 years ago, you needed to have money, that shmoney, that doodle-loppy. You needed to have cash dollars in order to purchase all the servers. And then you needed to know how many servers. Right? So if you're starting a small business and you don't have a lot of money, you needed a small business loan because you needed to have all these devices and they were not cheap. Nowadays, you can get a somewhat decent laptop for under $500. If you're just trying to access the internet and do a few things, you'll be fine. But if you're trying to get a physical server, we're talking thousands of dollars. And then 9 times out of 10, you're not buying one, you're buying multiples. And then you need someone who has the credentials to configure everything if you're not that person. So CapEx versus OpEx is really helpful because before, if you're doing all that upfront, that's capital expenses. You're doing that before you even get any money, right? So you're buying the hardware upfront. That's a large investment. You're getting server rooms, you're getting equipment, and then you have to maintain it. And of course, you need an IT department to help you with that because if you're not the server admin, right? You don't know how to do the networking, your stuff's not going to work. So you need someone in-house who can do that for you. But with Azure and AWS and Google and Oracle Cloud, you're now using an operational expenditure. What does that mean? That means it's pay as you go. So let's say, you have your small business and you just have one website and, you're only trying to sell locally. You may only need a little bit. Why should you pay all this money for a little bit? So you pay for what you use. This month, you only use, 5 gigabytes. Next month, you use 200. And then the month after that, go back down to 10. Why should you have to pay to maintain 200 when you only need 10? So you pay as you go and you pay for what you use. And it's always going to be you can do a yearly, but there's also a monthly option. You don't have to worry about the upfront costs, those hardware, that technician, and then the scaling. You know how I mentioned 1 month you're doing 5, the next month you're doing 200, then the month after that you're doing 10. Your bill will be slightly different. Think about your internet bill. Think about not your internet bill, your light bill, right? Do you want to pay for lights you ain't used? I know I don't. So yes, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pay for what we use. When they read that meter, they're like, oh, she only used this much lights this month. Her bill's only $50. I wish. But next month my bill might be $100. The month after that it might be $200. Wintertime that you're using that heat because it be cold outside, or in the summer if you live in the South. I used to live in Georgia and be sweating. My AC was always on because I was hot. Okay, so my bill was higher because I was using more. So the months you use more, your operational expenditure will be higher. Okay, so think of it that way. If you use it, you will pay for it. If you don't, you won't. And think about Uber, right? You only pay for Uber when you need it. You're not in the ride, you don't got to pay for it. I paid, some of my Ubers could be $5. I could forget about Uber for 6 months and then go back in there and log in and pay for an Uber or Uber Eats, or now what they got, Uber Pharmacy or something. I don't know. I pay for it when I need it, and then when I don't need it, I don't think about it. And that's the same kind of thought process here with the cloud. The cloud is like Uber. You don't have to buy the car. You just pay when you need it. And I am so grateful for that because I don't drive. And I probably never will. And my mom's still mad about that, but it's okay. Okay, on-premise versus the cloud. So once again, on-premise, whenever you see on-prem or on-premise, that means that it is a physical location. When you think of like how nowadays you see hybrid everywhere, that means that sometimes you're going to be on the premises, you're going to be in that building. And then other times you can be at home, which is my preference because it's comfortable here. And I like everybody in my house, right? So once again, on premises means that everything is in your building. You pay the rent there, okay? You're paying them utilities that everybody using up. That light bill, that water bill, that gas bill, that's you. It's on premises. So everything in there is your responsibility. And do you really want that? I know I don't. Because the rent in some of these rental properties is very high. Now, in the cloud provider handles all of the heavy lifting. So once again, on premises, you have high upfront CapEx. What is CapEx? Capital expenditure. This is very important. They will mention this on the exam. Their scalability is limited, right? Because if I only buy one server, I can only handle whatever data comes with one server. So the minute I get really popular, you go viral, right? Then I can no longer support what I need to support. Then I look unprofessional because I wasn't prepared. We don't ever want that. Okay? We want to look like we can handle everything, even if maybe we can a little bit. So you want to be able to do the pay as you go with the operational expenditure. You want to have scalability. Right? You ever go to a website you can't get on the website? Or you ever see when Chime goes down and you can't access your money because AWS having an issue? Right? They didn't have high scalability that day. They needed to get their stuff together. Because why can't I access my bank account? That's the problem. Maintenance. Who's doing the maintenance? If you're on premises, you got to hire the people. Now you got to go find a server administrator and pay them at least 95 to 100K, maybe more, right? Because let's be honest, it's a high skill set. You're going to need to have lots of years of education and certifications and all this experience. So they're not cheap. So you're coming out of pocket even more. And then you have a fixed capacity. So there's no flexibility. Once again, you go viral. Who's going to be able to handle that? Like, I don't know if you guys remember the last election, but when Trump first became president, right? Everybody and their mama went on Canada's website to try to see how they could become Canadian citizens or how they can immigrate to Canada. You know what happened? Their website went down because they probably have fixed capacity. So we don't want to be like them. Well, maybe we do and move on up there. But until you do that, you need flexibility. Think of like an elastic rubber band. It goes out, goes in, snaps right back. And you want to have global reach, right? Nowadays, everything is online. Think about TikTok. Think about Instagram and Facebook. You can literally talk to anyone anywhere in the world at any time. You want those people. Maybe your customer base isn't in the US. Maybe your customer base is in India or China or I don't know, Japan, England. You want to be able to access those customers. Because why should you limit yourself to only what's available in the United States of America? I know I don't want to. Okay, now let's talk about these cloud service models. I know that you think I've been talking about this all day, but I promise you this is going to be a good chunk of your test. Okay, we want that certification. We want to pass on the first time because we are excellent, and we're going to do that. All right, so let's go into cloud service models. We have infrastructure as a service. That's when you manage the operation system. So when you see OS, that's operation system, okay? And the operation system is Windows, Mac, or Linux, whatever Linux you may have. That's or Chrome if you have a Chromebook, but don't buy one of those, okay? So once again, infrastructure as a service, IaaS, you're going to be managing the operation system, any applications that you may have. So like if you have a game app or a login app, whatever apps you're going to handle that. The data, that means all of the files, that's all you. You are responsible. And then whatever middleware. The provider, that means whoever your cloud service provider is, they're going to handle your service, storage, and networking. And honestly, you want them to, because once again, you're going to have to find somebody qualified and who's willing to work for a little bit of money, because I ain't got none, right? You're a new business. You don't have no money yet. You haven't made any money yet. And your loan is only but so much, because, the government's not handing out money for free anymore. So examples of services that this would be AWS EC2, Azure Virtual Machines, and Google Compute. These are platforms where you can use their infrastructure, their servers, their storage, and their networking to get your business up and running, okay? So this is one of the most tested concepts on the test. You need to know this like you know your name, okay? You need to know this better than your alphabet. I remember when you was a kid and you was singing that song you should have no business singing, and your mom was like, you need to know this like you know them ABCs. You know them ABCs like that? That's how you need to know this, like it's your ABCs, because it's important. It's what's going to be the difference between you passing and you failing. And failure is just not accepted, so we're going to pass. Next, platform as a service. So that's PaaS, PaaS. So what do you manage? You manage the applications and the data. You see how they took a lot out there. That's amazing. That means I got to do less work. I like that. I like to work smart, not hard. So what does that mean? The provider now has more responsibility. They have more operating. So now they're handling the operating system. So now they're handling the Mac or the Windows or the Linux instance. They're doing that. They're handling the runtime. They're handling the hardware, and they're handling the middleware. That's amazing. That means I ain't handling it. I love it. Okay? And then, of course, you have software as a service. So what is software as a service, you ask? That means you manage nothing. Nada. Perfect. I don't have to do any thinking. I love it already. Who does everything for you? The provider. So who would be the provider? You would have to have Microsoft 365 is a cloud platform. Gmail, Salesforce, Zoom. Those are all services where the platform does everything for you depending on your configurations. Once again, this is perfect because there's less responsibility on you, more for you to figure this out, and more responsibility for you to get your business up and running, okay? Once again, we need to know this information. This is one of the most tested parts of the exam. Software as a service. You use it every day. Do you listen to Apple Music, Spotify? You watch Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, okay? HBO Max. I like HBO Max. You use email, Microsoft 365, Gmail, iCloud email, Google Workspace, Salesforce at work, Zendesk. There's so many platforms. Zoom. Or if you remember back in the day, Uvo, MySpace. Some of y'all might not remember MySpace. That's okay. Software as a service. You don't have to install anything. You go to the computer, phone, mobile device, and you log in. So like your email, like we mentioned. I mentioned Google. I mentioned Gmail. Okay, iCloud, Outlook. You just go type in your name and password, and that's it. Facebook. You don't have to go anywhere for that. It's on your phone. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. And now you don't even have to log in. You just log in with Facebook. That is software as a service. You are familiar with the concept and you didn't even know it. You just don't call it that, but now you know. Gmail is a software as a service platform. Netflix is a software as a service platform. So it is SaaS, okay? And just to give you more visual, okay, here is the comparison of infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and platform as a service. So as you can see, for infrastructure and platform, you have some responsibility. But for software, you don't have any responsibility. You have more convenience. Or if you don't want to think about it as responsibility, you have more control. So depending on how much do you want to have day-to-day contact with, you want to have to maintain and have the configurations for, infrastructure as a service. Platform as a service, you want a little bit less, but you still need a little help. And then of course you have software as a service where it's really more convenient and all you have to do is log on to some sort of web portal with whatever username and password, preferably that's not password, and you can control your environment that way. So think of Microsoft 365, Google Workspaces, if you have a Gmail account, you also have a Google Drive, you have Google Docs, Google Sheets, right? That is a software as a service platform. All you did was log into your email, right? And now you can even save your bookmarks, you can save your passwords. It's so much you can do. So think about what apps do you use daily? What apps are you using daily that you didn't have to install? What websites are you going to every single day? I know I use my Gmail account all the time. Gmail, I have so many emails that I manage. I'm constantly responding to emails or deleting emails or creating a Google Drive document. I'm using software as a service every single day, multiple times a day. So what are you using? Okay, and then we have, and the best way to explain it is if you look at this chart here, which I want you to embed in your brain, okay, just as much as your social security number is in your brain and you know your mother's phone number, okay? Embed that in your brain. The gold is you. Yes, you on the other side of this camera, it's you. And the green is the provider. It would be me, or Google, or Azure, or Amazon, one of them, okay? The three big providers, as you've heard their names a lot, but we have Azure, AWS, and GCP. Now, Azure is Microsoft, AWS is Amazon. Yes, the people who deliver your packages allegedly in 2 days. And Google is the third one. These are the top three. And if we can learn all three of these, we'll play Cardi B, okay? Show me the money. Like they said in that movie, show me the money. Yes, that would be you, because they will be calling you. I myself am a Microsoft 365 admin, and they call me all the time and they offer me high six-figure roles, right? AWS is the #1 in the world. So like Jeff Bezos, he's not a billionaire because he was giving you packages and gave you discounts on stuff he's a billionaire because of AWS. That's why. Because AWS is one of the biggest, it is the biggest platform for cloud computing. And their certification is $100, and we'll be working on that in the next class, okay? And then there's Google. I recommend at least doing the fundamentals in all three because the technologies and the services are the same. The names are just different, right? If you look in the previous slide, there was, Azure Virtual Machines versus Amazon EC2. Those are the same thing, just owned by a different company, right? So let's go down the list of these three providers. Azure is number 2 globally, and primarily used by enterprise environments and government. It's obviously easier to integrate into the Microsoft ecosystem, right? Using Microsoft 365 because it's a Microsoft product, right? And it's best to start off with the AZ900, which is why we're here in this class today, because we're trying to learn Microsoft Azure. And then it's a hybrid cloud leader. What does that mean? That means a lot of people use Azure and AWS, or they're using Azure and they're on premise. Okay, Azure's focus is highly big in government, healthcare, and enterprise. So if you're looking to be a government employee, if you're looking to work as a healthcare IT professional, or working for these big Fortune 500 companies, you need to know Azure, because most companies are using Microsoft 365, and Azure is one of those services that they're using. So you're going to want to know this in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Now, AWS, that is number 1, right? That is the largest cloud provider worldwide. Most of their services are in most regions, huge job market, and it's literally the pioneer. So they were the first to start this cloud computing, okay? So we really need to go over there and learn about them too. That's next. And of course, we can't forget Google, right? Because they need to be in on the money too. So Google is considered the AI and the data analytics leader. They are the creators of Kubernetes. They're strong use in startups, and they're big at dollar tooling, okay? So just to go over, AWS is a lead for startups. So the primary certifications that we're probably going to focus on here at Rohari Tech Academy is going to be the AZ900 right now, and then that AWS Cloud Practitioner, okay? Because we're going to set you up for success so that they can come to you with 6-figure offers, and I can get more students. Win for you and a win for me, okay? Let's go to the next slide. Regions and availability zones. So a region is a geographical area containing multiple data centers. Examples would be East US, West Europe, Southeast Asia. Availability zone is a separate independent data center within a region. Each has its own power, cooling, and network. Disaster recovery. If one data center goes offline, traffic automatically routes to another availability zone. Zero downtime for users. So the only time this would become a problem is if multiple data centers went down. That would probably be chaotic and catastrophic for a lot of businesses, and the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. So just the way to think of it is if one goes down, there's another. Okay? So never should there be an entire system down. That would literally mean all the servers have to be down. And there's quite a few, especially for AWS and Azure. So the likelihood of that being a problem is almost null and void. It's like non-existent. Okay? And just to give you an example, Azure has over 60 regions worldwide. That's a lot. There's 60 regions in various countries, continents. There's no way that all of them will be down at the same time. Okay, so this is the shared responsibility model. What does that mean? That means between you and your provider, so you and Google, or you and Azure, or you and AWS, who has responsibility for what? So cloud provider secures the physical hardware, the data center facilities, network infrastructure, host operating system, and visualization level. So just want to indicate a big mistake that some people make is that assuming that the cloud is automatically secure. Your data is your responsibility. So don't assume that anything is secure. It's probably not. Okay? Shared responsibility, identity and access management, network controls, application security, operating system, infrastructure as a service, encryption, and policies. Okay. So the provider is going to secure the infrastructure. You secure the data. So you're responsible for your usernames, your profiles, your internal documents. That is all you. No one else is responsible for keeping that secure but you. Okay? So what are you securing? Your data and your files, right? Your user accounts, your devices, so any computers, mobile devices, cell phones, tablets, any of those types of things, you are responsible for securing. Application code, so if you're programming and you're creating a app from scratch, you are responsible for keeping that proprietary information secure. And of course, you're responsible for how you provide access and who provides the permissions to that access, okay? Because a lot of times access is the issue. People just share links with anyone and they don't secure their data. And that's how outsiders can get in. And you don't want a threat actor coming into your organization and messing stuff up, okay? Scalability and elasticity. So what does that mean, right? So you want to scale up. That means you want to add more power to an existing machine, either more CPU, more RAM, more storage. It's like getting a new laptop, right? If you have a Chromebook and you realize I can't do what I need, I'm going to go get a new MacBook or I'm going to go get a new Windows PC, right? Scale out. That means horizontal. So now you're not just adding more, you're adding more this way. You're getting more devices as opposed to just upgrading the existing device, right? So now instead of having one server, you got two. That's scaling out. And then elastic scaling automatically scales up when the demand rises and scales down when it drops. That way, when they read your meter, you're only paying for what was used, as opposed to if you had 5 servers and you had them open, you just have 5 servers, even if you don't need the capacity of 5 servers. So a real world example would be at Friday night at 8 p.m., there are 200 million people streaming. That's a lot of people. And the cloud auto scales to handle the spike. Monday morning at 3 a.m., the traffic drops, right? Because everyone should be sleeping. The cloud scales down. Netflix only pays for what it actually uses. This is why Netflix doesn't crash on Friday nights when everybody's off and watching Netflix. Okay? So remember, elasticity automatically scales. Scalability is the ability to scale. Okay? So basically, you pay for what you use. So that's what we want. We want it to be scalable, meaning it can go up and it can go down. And we want it to be elastic or have elasticity because we want it to be able to do that automatically so that I don't have to remember that, Saturday is is my prime time. I need to have more. It will automatically do that for you. Once again, this is a pay-as-you-go model, meaning that when you turn it off, it's not being used, right? Like when you turn your lights off, they're not on. So you're not paying for that because they're off. There's no, the meter stops using it. Like if you're not running water, you're not going to have to pay for that, right? So only pay for what you use. You're billed for your actual consumption, not a flat rate. What does that mean? There's no wasted resources, right? So if you turn off the VM at night, you stop paying. No idle server costs, right? Because if you have 5 servers, you're still going to have to pay for the power that goes to those other servers, even if you're only using 1. Why should you do that? That's a waste of money and resources that can be spent elsewhere improving your business. Flexibility with billing. Costs rise with usage during peaks and fall during quiet periods. And then, of course, no over-provisioning. In a traditional IT environment, you have to buy enough for the peak demand and waste it 80% of the time. Think about that. 80% of the time. That doesn't sound like a good use of money or resources. And in a business, those are very, very important. So once again, when you turn it off, you stop paying because you're no longer using it. That's the power of the cloud. Okay, because imagine if you still had to pay for your lights when you weren't using them. Your light bill would be Ridiculous. And it's already entirely too high because Pepco be playing games. So, as I've mentioned before, you could buy 50 servers on Black Friday, right? Because that used to be the big sale when people was beating each other up to get the discounts. You buy 50 servers on Black Friday, and then those 50 servers are sitting idle for what, 11 months out of the year, right? That doesn't make sense. You've wasted money. You spent that money. You can't get it back. Now, if you have cloud with the auto scaling, you only scale up when this spike happens, right? Look at this. Monday at 3 a.m., you got 2 users. Monday at 9 a.m., you got 5. Black Friday, you got 50 plus. And then January 1st, what do you got? Only 1, 2? See that? You see this chart? Why should you pay for 50 when you only need it for 2, right? So some of the key takeaways that I want you to have from this lesson, right? What did we learn? Okay, let's lock this in. What is cloud? Renting computing power over the internet. That means you don't own the hardware required to host it. You're just renting access to the space. What does that do? It saves you money, right? Operational expenditure versus capital expenditure. Okay, how does that affect your company, your business, whatever? And the scales instantly based on demand. What does that mean? That means it is elasticity. Yes. Look at you remembering stuff. 3 service models: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Control versus convenience trade-off. And while I like to have control of things, I also like convenience, right? I personally am a non-driver. What does that mean? I have to take public transportation. Sometimes that can be inconvenient. What makes it convenient? Uber. Okay, I will pay that Uber price to get me where I gotta go. All right. Shared responsibility. What is shared responsibility? The cloud provider secures the infrastructure. And who secures the data? You do. That's your data. You're responsible for keeping it secure. You're responsible for making sure your people have their passwords, 8 digits with a special character and a number and a capital letter. Okay? The big 3. Who are the big 3? Microsoft, AWS, and Google. But of course, because this is the Azure Fundamentals course and the certification is through Microsoft, our primary focus in this course is going to be Azure. But you still need to know who their competitors are. All right, so next we're going to do a quick quiz to test our knowledge. Okay, what does software as a service I didn't give you the answer. What does SaaS stand for? Think of Gmail, Netflix. Okay. I'm going to give you a few seconds on that. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And that's, of course, software as a service because I already gave you the answer. What is OpEx and how is it different from CapEx? Once again, we're going to use that Uber analogy. Uber versus buying the car. Okay, and the answer is going to be ongoing operational expenses, meaning you pay as you go. That is OpEx, and CapEx is upfront capital purchase, okay? Name all 3 major cloud providers. This should be real easy. You use them every day. Okay? So I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud, right? And you use Microsoft if you have a Windows PC, you're using Microsoft. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you're using AWS in some way. And if you have a Gmail account, you're using GCP in some way, shape, or form. Okay, and who is responsible for securing your data in the cloud? Okay, emphasis on the your. Think about that shared responsibility model, okay? And if you said yourself, then you are correct. Okay. So, of course, we have to have a little bit of homework, right? So this is what I'd like for you guys to do this week. I want you to create your free Azure account. Go to azure.microsoft.com, click free account. You get $200 of credit for 30 days, plus 12 months of free services. Explore the portal. Click around. Don't be afraid to explore. You won't be able to break anything. It is the free tier, okay? And identify 3 cloud services. Find 3 Azure services that interest you. Write them down. The service name, what it does, and whether or not it is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service, okay? This is where the theory meets action. Emphasize doing these things versus reading. I want you to know that you're going to read about it, but we're going to go do them, okay? I'm going to try to get you guys to, in that portal, clicking around, getting used to that platform, because when you get in the interview, they're going to want to know that you know this stuff, okay?